Welcome to Yehoshua's Daf Yomi Shiur, where the Daf continues daily until the complete revelation of Mashiach ben David, Messiah, the son of David. We're studying Chullin, page 94a, top of the page, with the words Chatucha Nami Lishadar Le. Chatucha Nami Lishadar Be, Dahar La'avasu Limizban Mine, El B'makom Shemas Machrizin. Consequently, it should also be permitted to send to a non-Jew a thigh that has been cut, because Jews will not come to purchase it from him. Rather, if the Mishnah is referring to a place where all the butchers are Jewish, and they announce every time they sell a treif animal to a Gentile, in which case Jews may purchase meat from local Gentiles. When such an announcement is not made, one should not be permitted to send even a whole thigh to a Gentile due to the concern that he might cut it up and sell it to Jews who would not realize that it contains the sciatic nerve. The Gemara offers two answers. If you wish, say that the Mishnah is referring to a place where they announce every time they sell a treifa. And if you wish, say that the Mishnah is referring to a place where they do not announce every time they sell a treifa. The Gemara explains, if you wish, say that the Mishnah is referring to a place where they announce every time they sell a treifa, and nevertheless it is permitted to sell a whole thigh of meat to a Gentile. There is no concern that the Gentile will sell the thigh to a Jew, because the Jew would know that it is non-kosher by the manner of cutting of the Gentile. Jewish butchers would cut the meat in a distinctive manner that would not be replicated by a Gentile who cut the meat. And if you wish, say that the Mishnah is referring to a place where they do not announce every time they sell a treifa, and nevertheless it is prohibited to give the Gentile a thigh that has been cut up. The sages issued a decree against doing so, lest he give it to the Gentile in the presence of another Jew, who will think that it is kosher and purchase it from the Gentile. And if you wish, say that there is an entirely different reason that one may not send a Gentile a cut up thigh without removing the sciatic nerve, because he thereby deceives the Gentile. The Gentile will think that the Jew has exerted himself to cut up the leg and remove the sciatic nerve, and that although the Jew could have eaten the meat himself, he decided to send it to the Gentile. The Gentile will therefore be more appreciative of the gift than he would be if he realized that the sciatic nerve had not been removed. This is, as Shmuel said, is prohibited to deceive people, and that includes all people. All people, Jews, Gentiles. You're not deceive anybody. You can't, Don't think you're better because you're Jewish, No, Jews aren't better. Jews are not better. They're all the same people. We're all the same in terms of, there's differences obviously, but you have to treat everyone equally. The Shmuel Haviko Avar Mikma Bimabara Amar Le Nishamei Baise Lemiboria Baise Veikban. The Gemara points out that this ruling of Shmuel was not stated explicitly. Rather, it was stated by inference, meaning it was inferred based upon the following incident. Shmuel was once crossing a river in a ferry. He said to his attendant, "Compensate the ferryman with the appropriate gift." The attendant compensated him, but Shmuel became angry with his attendant. My time ekbid amabaya tarnegoiles treifa have yehavne hale b'mar dishchuta. Rav Amar Anpaka Amar Le Yashkoye Vyashke Chamra Miziga. The Gemara asks, What is the reason that Shmuel became angry? Abaye said the compensation that the attendant gave the ferryman was a chicken that was a treifa, and he gave it to him as though if it were slaughtered kosher chicken. As if it were a slaughtered kosher chicken. Rava said Shmuel told him to give the ferryman wine for drinking in an anpaka, meaning a utensil that holds a quarter log and which was generally used for undiluted wine, but he gave him diluted wine for drinking. According to both Abaye and Rava, Shmuel was upset that his attendant deceived the Gentile ferryman. The Gemara asks, and if Shmuel's opinion was derived by inference, what of it? The story clearly demonstrates that according to Shmuel, it is prohibited to deceive a Gentile. The Gemara answers that it cannot be ascertained with certainty that this is the reason Shmuel became angry. According to the one who said it was a chicken that was a treifa that was given as compensation, perhaps Shmuel became angry and said to his attendant, "Why did you retain in your possession an animal that is forbidden for consumption?" This could have led to the Jew accidentally eating it. Similarly, according to the one who said that Shmuel told him to give the ferryman wine to drink in an anpaka, since anpaka indicates undiluted wine, and the attendant gave the ferryman diluted wine, perhaps Shmuel became angry simply because his attendant disobeyed his instruction. Tanya, Hay Rabbi Meir Omer al Yisarchev Adam lechaveroi lisod eslo Yodea bo she'en lesoyed v'lo yarve lo b'tikroves. Apropos the prohibition against acting deceitfully, the Gemara cites other statements on this topic. It is taught in a Braita that Rabbi Meir would say a person may not importune, or summon another to eat with him, making it seem as though he genuinely wants his company, but in reality he entreats him only because he knows that the other will not eat with him, meaning he will not accept the invitation. And similarly, one may not send another person many gifts merely because he knows the other person will not accept him. And one may not open barrels of wine for a guest if they have already been sold to a storekeeper, unless he notifies the guest beforehand that the barrel had been sold. And he may not say to another, "Anoint yourself with oil," and place an empty jug before him with the knowledge that he will not attempt to anoint himself, but if he does so for the guest's honor, to show that he holds his guest in high esteem rather than to deceive the guest, so that he will feel indebted to him, is permitted. Eini, is that so? Eini? V'ha'ula ikla debei Rabbi Yehuda, v'tach lo chaviyos ha'mechuar s'echemni, Odi Adoi Yevi Boy Sevashani, Ula de Chavi, Le, Rabbi Yehuda de Bulav Hachi, now we took him Ptach, Avi Ptachle. The Gemara asks, is that so? But didn't Ula happen to come to the house of Yehuda? Yehuda opened barrels of wine for Ula that had already been sold to the storekeeper. The Gemara answers, Yehuda notified Ula that he was not opening the barrels especially for him. If you wish to say that Ula is different from an ordinary guest because he was very dear to Rabbi Yehuda, so that even without this, meaning even if he had not already sold the barrels to the storekeeper, Yehuda would have opened the barrels for him. The sages taught in Braita, a person may not go to the house of mourning with a wine jug in his hand that is mostly empty, and where the small amount of wine rattles about, because the mourner will think that his visitors bring him a full jug of wine, and he may not fill up that jug of wine with water, because he thereby misleads the mourner into thinking that he has brought him a full jug of undiluted wine. But if there's a crowd of people, and the guest wants to honor the mourner in their presence, is permitted. Okay. תנו רבן אלוהים ברא אדם לחברו סנדל של מיסו בכלל של חי שחוטו מפני שני דברים אחד מפני שמטעהו אחד מפני הסכנה. Sage Thomas writes up, a person may not sell to another a sandal made from the hide of an animal that died of natural causes, as though it were a sandal made from the hide of a healthy animal that was slaughtered. This is prohibited due to two factors. One, because he misleads the customer into thinking that the leather is of higher quality than it really is, and another, because the danger involved, as it is possible that the animal died from a snake bite, and the poison seeped into the part of the animal's hide from which the sandal is made. ולא ישגר אדם לחבר חבש של יין ושמן צף על פיו ומעשה באחד ששיגר לחבר חבש של יין ושמן צף על פיו הלך וזימן עליה האורחים ונכנסו מצאה שהיא של יין וחנה כסס בו. And furthermore, a person may not send a barrel of wine to another with oil floating in its mouth, such that the recipient thinks it is a barrel of oil. There was an incident involving a certain individual who sent a barrel of wine to another with oil floating at its mouth, and that recipient, thinking it was a barrel of oil, went and invited guests to share with him. And the guests arrived. When the host went to bring them oil, he found it was a barrel of wine rather than oil, and in his shame at not having oil for them, he hanged himself. And he died. Okay? Bizarre story. He must have been really serious back then. I mean, okay. He could have just said, hey, look, I was deceived, or whatever. Anyway, it was different back then, I guess. ואין אורחים ושונית ממש לפניהם לבנו ואיתו לבשם הבייס אלא אם כן נטלו רשויות מבעל הבייס. But the Brisa continues that guests are not permitted to give some of the food that is placed before them to the son or to the daughter of the host unless they first receive permission from the host. ומעשה שזימן שלושה אורחים משני בצוירס ולא היה להניח לפניהם אלא כשלוש ביצים בבנה של בעל בית נדרך מהם בכל כה ונזנובה וכן שני וכן שלישי בא אביו של תינוק רצה שאויזק אחד בפיו ושתיים בידו יכבוד בקרקע ובמייס כיוון שרצה אמו יעשה לגג ונפל במייס אף הוא עלה לגג ונפל במייס. And there was an incident involving a certain individual who invited 3 guests during years of famine, and he had enough to place only 3 eggs before them. The son of the host came, and one of the guests took his portion and gave it to the son, and similarly the second guest gave his portion to the son, and similarly the third guest. The father of the child came and found that his son was holding 1 egg in his mouth and 2 in his hand. The father became so angry with the son for taking all the food that he hit the son to the ground, and the son died. Poor guy. When his mother saw what had happened, she ascended to the roof and fell down to the ground and died. And when the father saw that both his son and his wife were dead, he also ascended to the roof and fell down to the ground, and he died. Very sad. Amar Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, al davo ze nerahu shlosh nefashos miYisrael. My Kamash Malan, the Chullin Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov said, for this matter of giving food to the child of the host, 3 Jewish souls were killed. The Gemara asks, what does this statement teach us? It's obvious from the incident that 3 people were killed. The Gemara answers, it teaches that the entire Braita is taught by Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. תנו רבנן השולח יחלבר שלמה אינו צריך שייטול ממנו גיד אנשי חצוך צריך ליטול ממנו גיד אנשי ובגוי בין חתוך ובין שלמה אין צריך ליטול ממנו גיד אנשי. The sages taught in Braita, in the case of one who ascends Sages taught in Braita, in the case of one who sends a whole thigh of an animal to another, he is not required first to remove the sciatic nerve from it. This is because the recipient can see that it has not been removed and will not eat it until he removes the sciatic nerve himself. But if one ascends a thigh that has been cut up, he is required first to remove the sciatic nerve from it so that the recipient does not eat it unwittingly. And in the case of one who sends a thigh to a Gentile, regardless of whether it is cut or whole, he is not required to remove the sciatic nerve from it because a Gentile is allowed to eat sciatic nerve. מפני שני דברים אמרו אין מויכן ואילו יסטרפוס לגוי אחד מפני שמותהו ואחד שמו יחסו ממכנן ישראל and it was due to two factors that the sages said that one may not sell meat from unslaughtered animal carcasses or treifot to a Gentile. One, because he misleads him and he thinks that it is kosher meat, which is more desirable. And another factor is the concern lest the Gentile sell the meat to another Jew who will think it is kosher since it originally was sold by a Jew. And similarly, a person may not say to a Gentile, purchase meat for me from a Jewish butcher with this dinar due to two factors. Now we'll just continue on to 94b. Ela b'pnei ha'anasin ve'echad shema mochlim lo neveres treos. One factor, we're on the top of now 94b. One factor is because of the oppressors, meaning the concept that perhaps a Gentile will keep the money for himself and force the merchant to give him the meat without payment. And another factor is lest the merchant sell him meat from unslaughtered carcasses that were treifot without realizing that the Gentile is purchasing the meat on behalf of a Jew. Okay, we will stop here. We will